There's no Q. There's no Q&A, so you can put your questions in the chat.
Whoops. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Nikki, welcome. We're really happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can get the slideshow here. Okay. Present. And let's see. Can everybody see that okay? We're good. All right. Great. And I'm going to situate my notes here too, so I can see you guys and also know what I'm talking about. Well, thank you for having me at this CHAD meeting. I really appreciate being here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So it's the first week of June, which is exciting. Summer is here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some nice weather. Whether you're planning to travel, maybe take on a new hobby, play with your kids, or just really soak up in the sun. Summer is a perfect time to do all of those things. It's also a perfect time to explore new adventures. However, with ADHD, it can also be a very overwhelming time because there are so many possibilities. There are lots of details with those possibilities, and how to plan for it all can be a lot. And so this is why we want to tackle this head on. So hopefully you guys will have a great summer and make it one to remember. Okay, so we have a full agenda tonight. And first of all, we're going to talk about why planning is difficult with ADHD. I like to start all of my presentations that I do with some kind of education around ADHD. I really believe that the more you understand how your brain works, how ADHD is affecting the things that you do, the challenges start to really make a lot more sense. And you can start to work with your ADHD instead of against it. So we're going to start with that. Then we're going to talk about creating a mission statement for the summer. We're going to talk about how to manage transitions when our schedules change, how to identify important boundaries and how to keep those boundaries within our schedule and our time. We're going to talk about establishing new routines for the summer that are realistic. And we're also going to talk about intentional planning and how this strategy can really help you make sure that you fit in all of the things that you want to do this summer. And lastly, we're going to talk about a command center. This is a way to communicate with your family and to keep what's important in front of you as well. So like I said, we have a lot to cover. I did put together a guide that is a PDF, and I gave that to CHAD, to the CHAD members. And so you should be able to have access to that. Hopefully, I don't know if you're going to send it through email or how you guys are going to do that, but it has most of the information that I'm talking about tonight, so you don't miss anything. All right, so we're going to start with ADHD, executive functions, and planning. If you have ever found yourself struggling with creating a plan for anything, not just summer, but anything, it's a lot, and you're not alone if you feel like you're struggling. Planning takes a series of executive function skills, and these skills are impacted by ADHD. So I just want to read something from Dr. Russell Barkley. This is how he explains it. Executive function is the cognitive process that organizes thoughts and activities, prioritizes tasks, manages time efficiently, and makes decisions. Executive function skills are the skills that help us establish structures and strategies for managing projects and determining the actions required to move each project forward. That's a lot. That has a lot to do with planning if you were to really break this down. And I'm going to share with you an analogy that you've probably have heard before in the ADHD world, but I think it's a good one to really help us understand the role that executive functions play in our thinking. And that is, if you imagine an orchestra playing music and the conductor is leading them through a song. So each musician has their own instrument. They've been trained on how to play that instrument, and they know how to play it very well. Now, the conductor is coordinating and directing the musicians. So they have to be able to anticipate the different parts of the piece and cue the musicians at the right time. That conductor needs to let them know when to slow down, when to speed up, when to fade out, etc. So making sure that they're all playing together in a way that produces good music. So how does this relate to ADHD? Well, imagine that each musician represents a different executive function skill, like decision making, prioritizing, planning, organizing. And ADHDers can do all of these things. It just takes a little bit more energy and time, especially with activities that you don't have a lot of interest in. Then it can feel very, very difficult. So now imagine that your conductor is the frontal lobe of your brain that holds the executive function system. And with ADHD, your conductor may or may not show up to your concert. You may not even have them there, right? And if they do show up, they don't have the energy for the entire concert. So they tend to leave during intermission and leaves you hanging, trying to figure out what to do next. So without a conductor, the musicians or the skills, executive function skills, they don't know what to do. They're on their own with the inability to activate and manage these skills in the right way at the right time. So when ADHDers feel overwhelmed, they tend to shut down, which turns into avoidance. And it's because of all of these things, they're not working. So when you're treating your ADHD, you are looking for ways to ensure that your conductor has everything they need to have a great concert. So we're looking at your sleep. We are paying attention to nutrition. We're paying attention to exercise, medicine, therapy, coaching, the ADHD strategies and systems that you're putting in place, and community. Community is so important when it comes to managing ADHD. So these are all of these things are pieces to a puzzle that can really help you as you're navigating your ADHD. And when it comes to planning, there are a lot of executive functions that are needed. You have to make decisions on what you want to do, what you don't want to do. This requires you to prioritize what is most important and set boundaries around your time. You need to plan ahead for these events and ideally not wait until the last minute to get them done. Organize whatever details or tasks that need to be done ahead of time. And then finally, we need to remember what we wanted to do. We need to remember to follow through with our plans, because even with the best intentions, they don't always work out. So this is a lot. And the next time that you wonder if it's just you that's having a hard time, no, it's not just you. It's the ADHD. It's your ADHD. And what I always tell my clients and people that I talk to with ADHD is to please give yourself the same grace and support and compassion that you would offer to someone else if you knew that they were struggling. So we want to treat ourselves just like you would treat your best friend. All right. So how do you figure out what you want this summer? It starts with a mission statement. And in your workbook, you'll have a chance to actually do this on your own, but I'm going to walk you through it right now so you can see how it works. So we're going to have you answer 3 questions. What do you want? Why do you want it? And how are you going to get it? So we want to answer these questions with only 3 or 4 descriptive words. And this is really hard to do if you have ADHD, because you tend to want to answer the question and write a whole page about that one question. But we don't want to do that here, because what we're doing with these words is we are actually creating a mission statement that's only going to be about 2 or 3 sentences long. So we just want to choose 2 or 3 words. And then we'll work out the mission statement. So I'm going to give you an example here. So this is my mission statement for the summer. What do I want? I want to enjoy the weather. I'm in Oregon, so we don't always get sunshine. And so summer is a big deal here in Oregon. So I definitely want to enjoy the weather. I want to have fun, and I want to connect with my family and my friends. Why do I want it? I want to have good memories. I want to look back at the summer and feel like we had a lot of good memories. I want to feel alive. I want to feel like I'm out and about and doing things. And how am I going to get it? I'm going to take walks outside, and I'm going to set up dates with friends and family to make sure this happens. So after looking at this, I was able to put together a sentence, a mission statement for myself. I want to enjoy the sunny weather, have fun, and connect with those I love. This is important because I want to create lasting memories and feel like I'm living my best life. I will make this happen by setting up dates with my friends and family throughout the summer that involve being outside and trying new things. Now, once you have a mission statement, I want you to actually display it somewhere that you are reminded of it. When you have it in front of you, it's a good reminder of your goals and are you on track? I'm an introvert, so for me to actually say I'm going to make these connections is a big deal. I have to really intentionally make them. So I need to be reminded that it's good to get out of the house and do these things. So that's why you want it in front. Okay, so next, I'm going to talk about transitions and how they fit into your summer plan. Transitions are difficult for ADHDers, and it doesn't matter how big or how small the transition is because they cause friction in the ADHD mind. They're hard. They're just hard. If you're a parent, you have probably been known to give your child a 5-minute warning. And this is setting up the child to let them know that soon they are going to stop what they're doing and they're going to have to either go home or get ready to go home or whatever it might be. A pretty common tool that we use as parents. But we also do this as adults. We set up alarms to remind us to get ready for an appointment or to leave the house. We're using alarms and reminders all the time, and those are helping us with these transitions. So it takes a great deal of energy to switch tasks, especially if it took you a while to start the task in the first place, and now that you have to leave it. So changing gears like this and shifting focus can leave you feeling very irritated, fatigued, and that scattered mindset. And you can also find yourself in hyperfocus mode. Which makes it very difficult to switch tasks because now you have found your momentum and you're highly interested in the task that you're doing, which makes it really hard to pull away. And we deal with these transitions every single day. We are dealing with them by getting out of bed in the morning. So it starts right from the get-go. Now the alarm's gone off, I have to get up. Moving on to a new chore or a task throughout the day, coming back from lunch and getting back into work mode is a transition. Coming back from vacation. If you're moving to a new home or starting a new job, those are even bigger transitions that are going to take even longer for us to adjust to. So change is taking us out of our comfort zone, and it takes a lot of energy to react to the unknown. And this discomfort is just intensified when you have ADHD. So again, I'm going back to the self-compassion piece. It's really important to keep this in mind. If you have ADHD, but also if any of your children have ADHD, because all your children are also having as much difficulty with the transitions as you are. They may be different, they may feel different to them, but they still may be struggling. So we want to make sure that we're giving each other lots of grace as you enter this season. Okay, so when we are aware that transitions are difficult, we can start to plan for them. So at the very least, we won't be surprised if we're feeling overwhelmed or unsettled in some way. When we plan for them, we can ease our anxiety. It allows us to set more realistic expectations. And you're embracing your ADHD. You're working with it. You know that you're going to get distracted, and it may take longer for you to move into a new task. So allow that time to happen. Same thing with your children. Allow them to have extra time when they need it. Now, to plan for your transitions, we want to incorporate buffer time in your schedule. What this means is you're basically allowing space in between your schedule. So you want to avoid back-to-back appointments. You want to make sure that if you work or if you are better in the morning than you are in the afternoon, that we schedule accordingly. So what we're doing here is we're looking at our energy. We are allowing that buffer time, but we're also looking at when do we feel the best and what transitions do we need to plan for that are maybe smaller, and then which ones do we need that, more time. So we're really looking at that energy management as a big part of that. I noticed I went a little quick on the slide. Sorry about that. This is actually what you're seeing right now are specific examples of how you can plan for transitions during the summer. One of the things that came to me when I was thinking about this is and some of your kids are probably already off, but taking that first week off of from when they are going from school to summer, having it off and just really having less structure and more flexibility and kind of figuring out what your summer routine is going to look like, but really kind of easing into it. If you have a lot of activities during the day, I definitely would say plan some transition time into your schedule by having lots of breaks and allowing yourself and your children to decompress and rest. Again, if you are really busy, you might want to select one day off where you can just do whatever you want and make it a fun play day. The to-do list is out and you're just going to have fun and do what you need to do to get that rest and have some fun with the summer. If you have travel plans, this is a strategy that I highly recommend, and that is giving yourself a day off after you come back from vacation before you go back into work. If you come home at midnight and then you have to go to work the very next morning, I'm going to probably bet that 99% of you are going to struggle. It's going to be a really difficult transition. And so we want that extra day to unpack, go grocery shopping, laundry, whatever you need to do to get back to your normal routine, especially if there was a time zone change. You might be fighting some jet lag too. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to that. So when we schedule this transition time, it allows us to have this space in our schedule. And in order to do this effectively, we need to set boundaries around what we want to do with our time. And we have to decide what is most important. And this leads me to the next section here, which is talking about boundaries. And I just realized, let's see. Yeah, sorry about that. My fingers are faster than what I speak. So we are back on the right slide. So setting boundaries, you have to ask yourself, how much do you want in your summer schedule? Do you want everyday activities where you're doing something? Or are you looking for those lazy days, of summer kind of vibe, or maybe something in between? So the good news is that it's in your control. You get to decide what you want to do this summer. And one of the ways that we can do that is taking that summer mission statement back in your hand and figuring out what boundaries you want to set within your schedule. What questions do you need to ask before you say yes to something? And this is something you can do by yourself. And if you have a family, you can do it with the family too, and get together and really figure out what the goals are and what you want to do. Now, with boundaries, I have a few strategies that I want to talk about. The first one is having a family meeting, reviewing all together the summer schedule, reviewing any kind of weekly or daily schedules or routines that are tied to those schedules that you need to talk about. If you have a family, what are the rules of the house in the summer? What's the rule or boundary going to be around using digital devices? What are the rules around activities with friends? Can they come over whenever they want? You have to kind of figure out what that is for your family. Curfews, if you have older children, chores, what's going to be expected on a daily basis. And then depending on the age of the children or yourself, what are the consequences and rewards from staying within those boundaries? Second thing that I would say is to pause before you say yes to anything. Such an important piece of setting boundaries and sticking to them. If someone asks you if you want to attend something or if you want to be a part of something, say thank you. Let me check. I'll get back to you. Even if you know it's a yes, I would still try to get into the practice of waiting before you say yes and just giving yourself that space to look at your calendar and make sure you have time in your schedule to do the things that are being asked. When you say yes, you are actually saying no to something else. So we want to make sure that that is what you really want to do. Now, Casey Dixon is a coach and she has been on my podcast a few different times. And the last conversation we had, we talked about disappointing others. And I walked away from that conversation really resonating with this and have talked a lot about it since I talked to Casey about it. It is okay to disappoint other people. People pleasing often results in overscheduling, which means we are doing too much or we can't do what we said we can do. And we end up disappointing them anyway. So we want to disappoint people up front, get comfortable with being uncomfortable by disappointing others and saying no. It is not worth it if it's at your own expense. And we want to save your energy for what you value most. And this is really true for introverts like myself. It takes a lot of energy for me to be in a public setting or be at a party or, be very social. So like, I need to make sure that I'm saving that in a way that I'm saving it for people that, I really want to be around and that is of my values and priorities. So something definitely to think about. Okay, so establishing routines. So we've talked about planning for transitions, how to set boundaries. And the next area I want to talk about is these routines because they are going to change a little bit as we go into the summer. So routines are a set of actions that are done on a regular basis, usually in a particular order. So routines can be very helpful because they help us stay focused. They help us stay with the task at hand. They increase our follow through on tasks because often you're putting them in some kind of checklist so you can actually see all of the different steps, which decreases stress and anxiety about when things are going to get done. And they also allow us to be better planners. So the first thing or first step that we want to do when we're establishing a routine is figure out what actions you want done on a regular basis and in what particular order. So do you need a morning routine? Do you need an evening routine? How are these different, in the summer versus in the fall or winter? Do you need a routine around chores? Do you need to look at your exercise routine? Maybe now that the times are going to be different because of the summer. Now, once you know what routines you like to have, then you can start to brainstorm the list of tasks that go with each routine. You can prioritize them in the order that they need to be done. And one of the things that I always tell people when it comes to like routines with the morning is, what are your needs and what are your wants? And that's a really good way of starting to order the way that you're going to do the routine. Because if it's an absolute need, those have to happen first. If it's just a want, then if you're running late, it's okay if those don't get done. Write them into a checklist and then set up those reminders of when you're going to do that routine and track your progress. And there's lots of ways you can track your routines, lots of different apps and things like that. But this also gives you a chance to evaluate what's working and what's not. So because routines are done on a regular basis, we can actually estimate the time that they take more accurately, because they're things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. When we can do this, then we become more efficient with our planning. So once you know what routines you have or want in place, I suggest that you track the time it takes to do each task. What we're doing here is we're collecting data. What amazes me is I could swear to you that I take a 5-minute shower, but when I track it, it's 15 minutes. And so it's these little things that we think are not taking very long, but they do. So we really want to start collecting some data. I suggest that you do it at least 3 to 5 days. Look at this data with curiosity, no judgment at all. If you take a 30-minute shower, no judgment, but we need to know you're taking a 30-minute shower so that we can start to plan for that better. The information is so valuable because it really is giving you the real time, and it's not the time that you think it should take or what you would like it to take. And then now we can become better planners by making those adjustments that we need to. So sometimes it might mean that you have to get up earlier. It may mean that you need to prepare more in the evening. I have seen some people who, when they track their time, they realize that they can organize a little differently by having like a lunch basket that has just all of the lunch items in it. So all they're doing is pulling the basket and then they're packing the lunch. It just saves a little bit of time, but enough to make a difference. Same thing if you have a landing spot in your home for backpacks, towels, camp stuff, whatever it is that you need, having that spot and getting it ready just so that it's easy to find. All of those little things can make a big difference. All right. So next we're going to go into intentional planning. And intentional planning is a process of carefully considering your mission statement, your priorities, your boundaries, all of these things that we've talked about, and creating a plan to achieve them. So the goal of intentional planning is to align your actions with your aspirations and to ensure that you're getting the results that you want. So intentional means that you are doing something on purpose. So tonight, what we're focusing on are the events and experiences that we want to plan out for the summer to make sure that we're getting the things, or that we're getting to do things that we want to do. Because this is the thing, if we don't do intentional planning, the summer is going to go by really fast, and you're going to miss some of those things that you wanted to do. And we don't want that to happen. So it doesn't guarantee that you're going to make those events, but it does increase your chances dramatically and can make a huge difference. So there's got to be a balance between some structure in the schedule, but also having some flexibility, because even with the best intentions, our plans are not going to go as planned. And it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong with how you've planned. It just means that plans change. And we need to be able to adjust our expectations. So ADHD is a messy time zone. It's a time zone of its own, right? And it's common to overestimate what we think we can accomplish in any given period. And this leads to frustration. And this is why it's important to really allow that buffer time in our schedules and pay attention to our energy patterns. So you can kind of see there's some themes here that keep reoccurring when we're doing those planning, or when we're doing the intentional planning. So the next activity that's in your workbook that I want you to do is to look at your mission statement, and then keep in mind the following questions as you are going to start to create a summer bucket list. So what's important to you? Are there some things that you would really like to do this summer? What are those? What's important to your family? What events are going on in your town that you want to be a part of? And what kinds of activities do you want to be doing in the summer? And so some examples of some different things could be going on a road trip. It could be having a picnic in the park, attending a concert, taking a hike or a natural walk or a nature walk, going to a water park, picking berries. That was something that we did for lots of summers. We would go pick berries and we would freeze them and have them for smoothies and things like that later. Go to the lake, or maybe it's like a weekend trip out of town. So what are just some things, fun things that you would like to have done, and putting those into a list, and that will become your summer bucket list. Now, in your workbook, the guide, the PDF, you're going to find a blank monthly calendar for June, July, August, and September. So for the next 4 months. And these calendars are there for you to sketch out different possibilities. So kind of think of it as like your rough draft plan. I highly suggest you use pencil because you'll be frustrated if you don't. But your first step in this intentional planning is to make sure that all of your known events are scheduled into your calendar. So any birthdays, holidays, weddings, graduations, baby showers, any of those things that are going on this summer, and vacations, we want to make sure that the things that we know about, we have in the calendar. And then anything that stands out from your bucket list that you can intentionally plan for now. So what I mean by that is maybe there's some fairs or some festivals that you want to attend. So find out what those dates are and times, and put them in pencil in your rough draft calendar, so you can see how those fit in with the other other commitments that you have. If there's something weekly that you would like to do, make sure you have time to do this in your weekly plan. So maybe when my kids were younger, every Friday we would go to the library and we would check out books every Friday. And so that is something that I would intentionally block on my schedule. So if you have something like that, or maybe you want to go on a nature walk every week and try different trails, when do you think you're going to do that? And start kind of sketching that out. Same thing with any kind of monthly activities that you might be involved in. And of course, once you're comfortable, you can add all of these events to your real calendar, whether you use digital or paper or both. This is just, again, kind of a rough draft for you to play around with it. Okay. So now that we've planned out what we know over the course of the summer, I want to talk about conducting a weekly plan. What this is going to do, let me rewind here. So when I say that we've looked at what you want to do over the course of the summer, is we have everything that we know, right? And everything that we think we know. And now on a weekly basis, we want to set aside each week some time to reflect on what you're going to be doing this week, looking at the commitments that are on the calendar this week. Where do I need to be? What do I need to do? And is there any overbooking that I need to be aware of? I'm going to look at my checklist or my summer bucket list, and I am going to decide what I want to add into that week. And so a lot of times people will do this on a Sunday because it's kind of the beginning, end of the week and beginning of the week. But review the week ahead and what bucket list item can you plan for? So maybe this would be the time that you go and pick berries or whatever. So what's happening here is it's keeping your mission statement and keeping your bucket list in front of you. It's keeping it important so that you make sure that you're getting these things done. So it's going from a monthly to a weekly and then to a daily review. So every morning you want to be looking at the start of the day and say, okay, well, what did I have planned for today? And what needs to be adjusted? Do I need to postpone something? Did something come up that I didn't know about? Or I'm just changing my mind and I don't feel like going and picking berries. I want to go to the water park. So, all of those things, it gives you that chance to look at it. So again, it's going from what I'm going to do this summer as a whole to weekly to what am I doing today? And I can't stress enough that adjustments are going to be made. They're going to have to be made. This is not a perfect system by any means, but it is a system that will get you closer to your goals and than not having any kind of system at all. Okay, so how do we communicate this with our families? And this is where the command center comes in. One of the ways to ease communication with the family is the summer or the communication with what's going on in the summer is to create a command center. And a command center is a designated area in your home where important information and papers and schedules are organized and displayed. So it could be RSVPs, it could be birthday invitations, it could be your pool schedule, whatever it might be that you need to have access to. And the benefits of having a command center is you're having everything is centralized, right, into one place that you can see. It's really important to have it visible and out in the open because for many ADHDers, out of sight is out of mind. And it's a great way to get that quick and easy access to whatever you need and communicate with your family. However, you can go into a huge rabbit hole on Pinterest. If you go to Pinterest and look at command centers, there's a lot. So before you do that, you do want to find out, what really is important to you. What is the intention of your command center? What kinds of papers or info do you usually lose that this type of system could be used for or be helpful in not losing those papers? Whoops. Again, I just went too fast. Sorry about that. There we go. Who is going to have access to the board or to the command center? Where is it going to be in your house? I've seen them in lots of different common spaces like the kitchen, walk-in pantry, shared hallways. I've seen them in laundry rooms, home offices, wherever it's going to be best for you and your family. We want to choose the supplies, lots to choose from. Calendars, shelves, baskets, chalkboards. I really appreciate the bulletin board, dry erase board. Some people have like a meal calendar up there so you know what your meals are going to be for the week. Photos and inspiration, I think, make it fun. So you want the space to be something that people will want to go to. So be creative, get your kids involved in it, choose supplies that have a design appeal to you. So that's a fun place to visit. Now, in order to keep the command center functioning and something that you are wanting to trust and use, we have to maintain it. And that means that we are paying attention to it. We're updating it on a weekly basis. And this is something alongside that you can do with your weekly plan. Your weekly plan is to also look at your command center and just make sure it's up to date. All right. So as we wrap up I just hope that all of you have a great summer, make the memories that are important to you. Because really at the end of the day, I believe that's all that matters, that you have a great summer, you enjoy yourself. The dishes can wait. You know, if you have a chance to go to the lake, have some fun. And there you go. So, oh, and practice self-compassion, because I think that's really important. So if you guys have any questions, I am open for questions. Ellen, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. No, thank you so much.
Oh, of course.
So much information, so much to take in. I could see myself, I don't know about others, getting hung up on this command center idea. I love the way that it looks. But keeping something like that up feels like a big responsibility and a little bit overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any suggestions for that?
Well, I think that that's where we have to really go into, and I'll go back to that slide. What function it's going to have for you, because it may not need all of these different components to it. You may just need a calendar, like a whiteboard, dry erase calendar, and a bulletin board, and that's it. So I think you really have to kind of figure out what is this tool going to do? How is it going to make your life easier? And if you don't think it's going to make your life easier, then it may not be the right tool. Right? Yeah. So it's interesting because one of the things that I had is, especially when my kids were younger, we would always have paper, right? There was always schedules and permission slips and just things that would come. And so I had two baskets that were hung up. One was for my son, Jaden, and one was for my daughter, Paige. So anytime those papers came, I just threw it in the basket. And then if anything was on the counters that had to do with one of them, I would just throw it in the basket. So what you're seeing are pictures from Pinterest of command centers that aren't really being used. When the command center is being used, it's messy. I mean, you're going to have papers, you're going to have stuff written on the chalkboard. But again, it has to be a tool that you like and that is useful to you.
Thank you. I think it would be easy, at least for me, to get hung up on the decorating and the designing, but it has to, as you say, fit my needs.
It has to work for you.
Yeah, it's going to be different for each of us.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I love the designs. They're really.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a big dry erase calendar that every Sunday night I would fill the whole thing out. And then as the week went on, we might make some changes on it. But one of my boys had one color, that was all his stuff. Another boy had another color, marker that we used. There was another color for me and another color for my husband. So we just kind of color coded it. And that was the main thing. And then we did have two baskets and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I think for, Andrea, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Nikki, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that for us, the most useful was the bulletin board, because we would put the schedule, like the school schedule, and then we would put like the RSVPs or the graduation notices, like those things. It was just easy to put it on the bulletin board. And the baskets were probably the things that we used the most.
Nikki, I just wanted to say that I resonated with so much of what you said, but I was trying to put it into my life just every single day, not just as it pertains to the summer, but how does it pertain to my life in general, whether it's keeping a calendar for work or whether it's, you know, helping my kids. But there are so many strategies that you threw out tonight that when we think about how do we implement them through the course of the year, it's so worth going back and looking at them.
Yes.
And the other thing that I really appreciated was create a bucket list, because how often do we stop to think about what is our bucket list just for the next 3 months?
Mhm.
And how do I make time for that? Because we're always running and doing, and it's like you spoke about the power of the pause. Like, how do we stop to look at that list, prioritize it, and then act on some of them? So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I got that idea. This is not a new idea by any means, but pre-pandemic 2020, there was a client of mine that was doing 20 things she wanted to do in 2020. And I loved it. I loved the idea. And so I created a 20 list of things. Like one, you guys will appreciate this, is to try a new restaurant once a month. Well, the pandemic hit. I got to do it in January and February, but that's it. So it's kind of, you know, bittersweet to look at it now. But that was where I got the idea. And I really loved it because it does give you, I don't know, it just gives you some focus of like intention and making things fun, you know, just getting out of the normal routine and doing something fun and something you enjoy. And I was going to say, Andrea, you're right. When I do a lot of work around planning, I have a membership program around it, and it's just a lot of the work that I do with my clients. And a lot of what I said tonight does go into regular planning. I highly recommend that everybody does a weekly plan, and I highly recommend that everybody looks at their daily calendar and to-do list. So there are a lot of things in here that can incorporate outside of just the summer.
And knowing that you're the planning queen, is
Yeah.
there a planner that you particularly like for ADDers?
Nope. No. And I say that because there is no perfect planner. And even when you try to create one yourself, you're still going to find things that are wrong with it. Because I've had people who will try to do their own Excel sheets and things like that, and it's still like something that doesn't work. I think what I have noticed and the success that I've seen in my membership is that most people have some kind of hybrid system where they have a digital online task manager to hold projects and to break them down and to be reminded of things. And then they tend to have like some kind of paper that's more for the daily, what do I do today? So having kind of a combination of both. What I would say is that the two most important tools to planning are your calendar and your task management system. So if they're not working, we got to figure out like how to get the calendar. Most people have pretty under control is what I find. It's the task manager is where people get so stuck. So I answer your question with a no, just because there isn't anything that's you have to just look and practice and see what resonates. And then once you find something that resonates, go all in.
Yeah.
And if you're a digital person, buy the upgrade. You'll never, ever get for free everything that system has for you. It's worth paying the upgrade.
And task managers, anything you could suggest?
Yeah, I say most of the time I suggest Todoist, things if you're a Mac person. There are Tick if you're in collaboration with people. But usually things and Todoist are the two that most of my members use. Trello, kind of. I would say that if you like the Kanban board, Todoist has that option. And so I would think Todoist is a little bit better than Trello.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Nikki, we have a question in the chat from Gary. Do you have any tips on practicing self-compassion?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, Gary, if you're not a listener of my podcast, it's called Taking Control, the ADHD podcast. And we did a whole series on self-compassion. I think there were probably at least 4 or 5 episodes where we had different guests come on and talk about self-compassion. There's also a book that I highly recommend, and a lot of the episodes were based off of this too. It's called the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook, and it is from Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer. But this is a great workbook, so I highly recommend getting that. I would say that the first thing about self-compassion is to really, like, I think you got to really be careful of that internal dialogue that's happening with ADHDers. A lot of times it's around shame. And so I think it's important to understand that where ADHD affects your life, which this is going to sound negative, but it affects everything. And so it's important to understand that you're not alone. These struggles are real. Community is really important, to be able to talk to other people who are experiencing the same thing that you are, and to know that it's not your fault and that you're doing the best you can. You showed up tonight to watch this. You're part of CHAD. You're doing what you can to, get those systems in place to help you, but treating yourself with the same grace and care that you would. I see Gary with the dog. His picture is with a dog. Like, what would you say to your dog, if he had an accident? I mean, I'm sure you're not going to beat him up the way you beat yourself up when you make a mistake. So it's just really important to pause and talk to yourself nicely and think, how would I treat somebody else going through this? If you have kids, how would I say this to my daughter? Would I say this to my son? No. And so why is it okay to say it to me? It's not.
Thank you so much. I'll check out this podcast.
Yeah. Please do.
Thank you.
I'm so glad. It's such a important point that so many times we don't even realize what we're saying to ourselves because we've done it for so long.
Yes.
So paying attention to actually what we're saying, then hearing it like, wow, that's just really unkind.
It's so unkind. And, my daughter is 17. She's almost 18. She was diagnosed with ADHD when she was in 8th grade. And just a few weeks ago, she had forgotten her therapy appointment. And she says in passing, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I forgot my therapy appointment." And I'm like, no, you're not stupid. It was a mistake. And, and kind of trying to like get her to see that that's not a nice way to talk. Like, that you don't, you're not stupid. But that's, and she's 17. Imagine all of the things you've heard even before that, that you said. So yeah, it is amazing. And when we were doing this self-compassion series, my co-host Pete Wright has ADHD, and he didn't really know all of the outlines or exactly what was going to happen. And so when we started talking about self-compassion, I could see how uncomfortable it was for him to have these conversations, because it's so hard to recognize and understand that you don't deserve that.
Absolutely. That Kristen Neff and Chris Germer book is an eye-opener for so many people.
Yes,
Yeah. Thank you for
I agree.
recommending that.
Absolutely.
It's actually, one of the things I learned from Kristen Neff is that self-compassion is more important than self-esteem. Self-esteem is based much more on what goes on outside of us and how it impacts on us, as opposed to this self-talk that you're referencing, which, when we can bring self-compassion to ourselves, it can make a tremendous change in how we feel and how we interact with others, and certainly in how we interact with ourselves.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and for our kids too, and one of the things I use for myself, as well as I try to share with others, is to use whoops.
Mhm.
Oh, whoops. Instead of, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Whoops.
Right. Right.
Change the whole relationship.
Well, and I think having a sense of humor too, and it's not making light of what you're going through, but just having a sense of humor. Like there's a guy, he's been a man who's been in the ADHD world forever, Rick Green.
Yes.
And he's very funny, and he uses humor a lot to describe ADHD and how to manage it and go through it. And I like that lightness of it too. It's like you said, Ellen, oops, you know what? It's okay. ADHD was loud that day. What can I say? You move on to the next day. You try again. And it definitely can lighten things up a little bit too.
It ties back to you talked about the pause and understanding that how we think is how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a choice if we take a pause between what we're thinking, right? And realize what we're saying
Yeah.
to ourselves. We take a pause. There's a choice in there about what path we go down. We're actually choosing how we feel by how we're talking to ourselves.
Absolutely. I had a mentor coach when I first started coaching, and she was telling me, and I think this is so true, that your brain can't think of negative and positive at the same time. And so when you start going down that negative rabbit hole of whatever it is that I'm thinking, she said, think of something that you're grateful for. What are you grateful for? And that gratitude pulls you out of that kind of darkness. And that I think is really, I still think about that. It's really important.
Absolutely.
There's a question here. It says, you mentioned the ADHD community. I don't know if people meet in your group here at times. I'm not 100% sure what Gary is talking about. Gary, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I thought she said something about communicating with people in the ADHD community.
Yes. So Gary, I'm going to have you mute yourself.
Yes.
Thank you. Just because there's that I can hear myself and echoey. There are a lot of places to find community in the ADHD community. Chad is definitely one of them. Going to a local Chad group can be very supportive, very helpful. ADA is also an organization that I volunteer for that I absolutely adore. And that's ADDA. And they have lots of different support groups, and they have a webinar series that they do every couple weeks. We have a speaker that comes out on and does webinars. If you become a member of ADA, I think it's like less than $8 a month. I know this because I'm a monitor of the ADA webinar. So it's kind of a speech I do every time that I post. But you get this whole library of webinars of experts from all around the world on all different kinds of subjects. So that's a really good resource, not only for the education, but for the support groups. We have a community inside the Taking Control of the ADHD podcast. We have a Patreon community, and these are folks that actually support us on a monthly basis, where they get to have access to us in Discord. And we have all different kinds of events and things that we do with our community. I have a coaching with Nikki once a month. We have a coffee with Pete once a month. He's the technical guy of the podcast. So he, during coffee with Pete, he'll have conversations around technology and ADHD. We have a happy hour that we do once a month. So there's lots of, we try to really hard to build the community within the podcast. Yeah, I would think, Ada, Chad, check out our show. There's lots of other, I know coaching groups and things like that too, that you might be able to explore. But the community, I think, is just so important, to be able to just be in a space where you don't have to explain yourself. People get it. They understand. They give great advice, and they share stories. And that's what you're looking for. Is you're looking for somewhere you can just be yourself and be with other people that get you, which is what Chad does, right? I mean, yeah.
I also wanted to add that in November, there's an international conference on ADHD. This year it's going to be in Baltimore.
Right. Close to New Jersey, right?
Yeah, less than 3 hours. And you'll get to be with your people. You'll feel so accepted and so at home and understood. And we're having lots and lots. I don't know if we've decided how many speakers we're going to have this year, but so many different topics, whether it's as an adult or as a parent, or, if you want to learn the science, there's a lot that's going to be out there. Nikki, do you remember the title we have for this year's conference?
I can find it out for you.
Learn something, thrive, Joni.
Or
you
is
are-
that what?
I can't learn.
What it would be nice if we
ADHD
knew.
conference. Oh, I just went past it.
Anyway, we will have it posted on our website. So you can check there if the 4 of us are not able to find it.
Yeah, I don't see it in my
before we
email.
get off.
Connect,
And if you can't,
learn, thrive.
Connect, learn, thrive.
Yeah.
thank you. And if you can't make it there, there will also be a virtual one. It's not the same experience as connecting with your people, but the information and the speakers will be available. And I think some of them will be available for Q&As at the end of their talks. So there's a lot out there.
I'll be speaking at the online one.
Will
I got
you
my
be,
approval.
will you also be at the, will you be in the in-person one though?
Oh yeah, I'll still go. Yeah. Oh yeah. I love the conferences. And like Ellen said, there's nothing like being in person, and it's a lot of fun.
The funniest is going into one of the sessions and everybody's coming in 10, 20, 30 minutes late. Nobody bats an eye. It's all
Nope.
okay. No time management, time awareness. It's okay. We
all
accept
right.
you for who you are. Come as you
Yeah.
are.
That's right.
Andrea's going to be presenting this year too.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yay.
Very proud and happy.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's almost 9:15. Unless there's any other questions, we can wrap this up for tonight. But, I don't know about anybody else in the audience, but I want to review everything that you said and really sit with it and think about it. I mean, just to come up with intentions and ideas about, really, what is it I want from the summer? I don't think I usually approach it that way. So, and I think I'm going to bring this to my husband. Maybe the two of us will sit
Yeah.
and
a great
work on
idea.
it.
Well, and hopefully everybody will have access to that PDF, Andrea, that I sent you.
We're going to post it on the website.
Great.
And if anybody wants like an actual, we shouldn't say hard copy, but a copy, you can write to me at adhd.bergencounty@chad.com. And I'll send it out to you, but it will be posted within the next several days.
Great.
Just also, want
So-
to say, I think one really, really important word that you said tonight was routines. So that's something that I think we all need to think about. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for everything. Really, it was just wonderful.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much for giving us your time and your thoughts. And we hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
So Joni, can you,
I can.
thank you.
Are we good? Do you
You're
need me to
So
say
good. And
anything?
you left us
Okay.
with so much food for thought. Thank
Oh,
you.
good.